So we have the door used by Christ in three different ways here. One, the door you must persistently knock on to get your 3 loaves. 2, the door you knock on in pursuit of the kingdom of heaven, the third step in his formula. And 3, the door which is Christ himself, meaning the way, the path to wholeness, life, heaven. And of course, all 3 of these uses of the word door mean the same thing. The kingdom of heaven in the pneuma, the spirit, which is the spirit of the Logos, the Christ. But why did Christ use this symbol, the door? Doors are used time after time again in religion, mythology, fairy tales, and literature to symbolize transition, a passageway from one place to another, from one world, realm, or state of being into another. There are many gods of doors, gates, portals like Janus, and literally thousands, well, I think there was over 1,000 Egyptian gate guardian deities. Christ being, from the early church's perspective, the ultimate God, the one true God. And from the Jungian perspective, well, just listen to how he uses the symbol of the door within the context of the archetype of the self. First, remember Jung said in Liber Novus, the soul has its own peculiar world. Only the self enters in there, or the man who has completely become his self. Now, in Archetypes of the Collective Unconscious, Jung says, the dream is the small hidden door in the deepest and most intimate sanctum of the soul, which opens to that primeval cosmic night that was soul long before there was conscious ego and will be soul far beyond what a conscious ego could ever reach. And this is my favorite one. This meeting with one's self is, at first, the meeting with one's own shadow. The shadow is a tight passage, a narrow door, whose painful constriction no one is spared who goes down to the deep well. But one must learn to know oneself in order to know who one is. For what comes after the door is, surprisingly enough, a boundless expanse full of unprecedented uncertainty, with apparently no inside and no outside, no above and no below, no here and no there, no mine and no thine, no good and no bad. It is the world of water. So the shadow is, as Jung says, the doorway to the self, or the Christ. It's a powerful archetypal motif, and it's incredibly important in the context of individuation or any form of meaningful success, psychological or otherwise. So in one sense, the door can represent the bridge between the unconscious and the conscious, the self and the ego. And it also represents the passage between heaven and earth, the numinous and the tangible, objective reality and subjective reality. Doors represent a deep and vital higher meaning, higher reality. Christ uses the symbol of the door when he talks about his version of individuation. To gain the kingdom of heaven, to embody the highest, you have to get through the door labeled Christ. Knocking on that door is taking actions to get to the reality on the other side of that door. And like I've mentioned in the past, that's the biggest, most important door. But there are many other doors as well, big and small, and Christ's formula applies to all of them. There's doors labeled wealth, love, anima integration, shadow integration. Insert your latest goal here. You can see each stage of the individuation process as a door, a portal into another world or reality, into another state of being. And behind each door is an archetype with the keys. Your anima, for example, is kind of like Mother Nature. She's not easily impressed, and if you fail, it's going to hurt. If you survive. Just think of the hordes of the dead who didn't meet her standards, the swarms of creatures large and small passing from this life every day into whatever awaits them on the other side. It takes persistent, heroic action to survive and thrive in the face of the great feminine judge we call nature. And the same is true to integrate your anima or animus and ultimately the self. It's difficult. In Revelation 3, Christ covers the importance of persistence again. Remember, he's the door, the holder of the keys of life and death. the gatekeeper of the kingdom of heaven. Here he says to be all in, either hot or cold. Because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth, he says. And then Christ transitions into more symbolic language about buying gold from him, white garments, which symbolize the highest. And it's much more complex than that, but that's another video or series of videos. Oh, and also salve for their eyes so they can open them and see before saying, I stand at the door and knock. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and dine with him, and he with me. That process sounds simple, and it is, but keep in mind, this is embodying the Logos, entering the kingdom of heaven. This is Christ's individuation. That is, this is the most difficult thing you can imagine. It's part of what he's saying when he says you must take up your cross daily and follow him. You must take up your cross daily and follow me. So this process of overcoming, interestingly, comes from two different directions. You knocking on the door, that is, you taking an action to get to the reality on the other side of that door, and then on the other side, Christ knocking, inviting you to open the door to dine with him, to overcome death and hell, and to sit at his right hand, symbolizing the kingdom of heaven. That door you're both knocking on is, of course, the path to the highest through the self, the Logos, the Christ. Now let's back up for a second to individuation. What is the purpose of individuation? To identify the archetypes within and integrate them, ultimately making the unconscious conscious and bringing the multiplicity of the unconscious into unity for the purpose of serving your higher self. That is, you're realizing, you're self-realizing, you're getting to know your unconscious motives, and understanding the real you, which gives you the ability to stop projecting. It helps you keep your unconscious from acting out or leading you down the wrong path, and it gives you access to the full range of your strengths, many of which were previously hidden in your shadow. Ultimately, it brings you into alignment and makes you psychologically whole, which essentially saves you from yourself and from the darkness in the world as well. As the more integrated the mind is, the more tools you have access to, like courage, resilience, the ability to manage anxiety and fear, balanced aggression, etc. That's the entire point, is to heal your mind, to set yourself free from your lower tendencies, and to make you whole. And Christ's kingdom of heaven has a remarkably similar meaning, as we've discussed. To both the early and modern Christian church, this kingdom of heaven is basically synonymous with the soteria Christ speaks of. Soteria being from soter, being from sozo, which means to save, to rescue, to deliver, heal, and make whole. This soteria is the word we translate today into the English word salvation. Soteria and the kingdom of heaven are, again, Christ's version of individuation, which predates the word by over 1,000 years. Now this is where Carl Jung and Jesus Christ differ, at least on paper. Who knows the whole picture, but Jung stuck strictly to the world of psychology, while Christ clearly had his feet planted in both the world of psychology and metaphysics, you could say. Sozo, it means to be made whole, also to heal, to deliver, to save from death. In Jungian terms, that's very similar to the outcome of individuation. Wholeness, emotional healing, and saving from psychological death, from a version, you could say, of hell. This is what we're all striving for when we put ourselves through the process of self-overcoming, self-confrontation, self-realization, and ultimately, individuation. And that's all I had for you for today. I will see you in the next one. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, share it, subscribe, and click the bell and all that. And yeah, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.